Today I've got 10 filmmaking tips for you. Hi, my name is Pontus, and I hope you're not too tired, pun intended, of looking at top 10 videos on YouTube. It is a successful format, and in this top 10 video, I'm going to be sharing all of my knowledge that I've learned in the past 6 years as a full-time filmmaker. Special thing about this one, it's a small bonus for you. This is a color checker. If you're using 2 different cameras, or maybe even more, having one of these color checkers is really easy because it enables you to, in post, actually match all of the colors without having to do all of the manual labor. And if you're colorblind like I am, it is kind of a necessity. Something that tripped me up a lot when I was starting out, and something that probably trips up most of you people, is that you focus on the visuals over the audio. You see, you can oftentimes forgive bad visuals. Maybe it's slightly out of focus, maybe the lighting isn't really that good, or maybe you're using a shitty camera. But if you have bad audio, no one is going to want to listen to that. Audio really should be an equal amount as big of a priority for you as the visuals are. And while I do understand that it's really fun to have a brand new spanking camera, having bad audio that goes along with that doesn't really work. I can reduce the video quality by a fair bit. Maybe you think you have a slow connection, or maybe you think I had a really bad video day. But if my audio starts sounding like this, you would probably click away right about now. Whilst we are on the topic, let's just continue talking about sound. To get great sound, you do not need a lot of high-end gear. In fact, the sound you're hearing right now is just straight from my DJI Mic 3. And if you just get this microphone without any receiver, it's like $90. And the audio is absolutely fantastic. And I can already hear you think this, Pontus, how can it sound so good? It's only $90. And yeah, it's only $90 of hardware, but microphones in and of themselves are quite simple. It's just a membrane that moves back and forth, that induces a voltage that you then amplify, and then you send it to somewhere with, and it gets digitized, and then you can hear it in your, Point is, they're quite simple, and if you want great sound, it's just put the microphone source closer to the audio source. So let me give you an example. Right now, this microphone is using auto gain, and now I'm doing the typical influencer thing where I'm holding the microphone to talk. But if I put the microphone further away, even if I amplify the gain so it sounds equally as loud, the audio quality is a lot worse. But if I put the microphone right here and I, again, adjust the gain so it sounds equally as loud, it's gonna sound a hell of a lot better. Side note, when it comes to lav placement, so basically a microphone around the chest area, try and put it on the breastplate, not up by the neck where many people actually want it, because the voice can become kind of tinny. Instead, you do want the bassy stuff that comes from in here to get into the microphone. And yes, even if you're filming females, you do want that to come through because you get a much fuller and richer tone. So my point is here that I could have the best microphone in the whole world, a MKH 8060 Sennheiser, which is among the top performing shotgun microphones in the world. But if I put it 2 meters that way, it will sound a lot worse than this lav microphone is doing right now. And I did tell myself I wouldn't get that deep into audio for this video, so let's move on to the next topic. If you want to hear me talk more about audio, then do subscribe. I'll be talking more about that in the future. For now, let's talk about my next tip. Shoot wider than you think you're gonna want. Now, this of course assumes that you are going to be editing this yourself, or you can talk to whoever is going to be editing it, so that you understand you actually shot it 10-20% wider and you expect them to crop in. Now, why do you want to do that? Quite simply because it gives you more flexibility in post. So for example, I can adjust where my headspace is right now in the video. I can also zoom out a bit to give more context. I can stabilize the video, even though it's not applicable here. But oftentimes when you're out and about running, gunning, having those extra 10% to be able to stabilize a lot more without sacrificing your frame, it's great. And yes, if you shoot in 4K and you want to deliver in 4K, there will be some pixel loss. You will not have a pixel perfect image. But to that I say, before we had the Alexa 35 with the old ARRI Alexas, they didn't even shoot in 4K, but we still delivered in 4K with those cameras. The image was simply upscaled, no one could tell, it actually looks great. If you still want a pixel peep, if you still want a 4K image when you've shot in 4K, you can get a camera that shoots in 6K, like for example my red Komodo X or my Nikon ZR. And when you're shooting in 6K, you can crop in up to 33% if my math is correct, because you're going down. Or you can explode, yeah. Fuck it. And moving straight on to hack number 3. Less lighting oftentimes is more. I own a lot of lights. And oftentimes I end up wanting to use all of them because I bought them, why shouldn't I use them? But while I do understand the concept of wanting to create a depth in the image, and I do appreciate that, you oftentimes end up with kind of a messy image with too much stuff going on, which takes away the attention of your main subject. With me today is my twin Pontus. Now this poor guy is mute, but he is very eager to show us how to use just one light for an interview setting. Now everyone be very nice to Pontus in the comments. As you can see, the angle you have your light at is important. It varies from person to person, so adjust it until it looks good on your subject. Pontus here seems to be trying to explain that you want the light at 20 degrees offset from your subject's POV. And here it comes, the Black Flag, which is by the way the best Assassin's Creed game. Give me a remake any day now. And that enables you to create a lot of drama. But wait, here is more drama! If you instead bounce the light, you get a high-key image. Okay Pontus, chill. We can see from your nipples that you take testosterone. But more so, we can also see that soft light works wonders. On the right side you can see some tones in Pontus' biceps, but on the left side not so much. Because the light is a lot softer the closer you are to the light source. Thank you VoiceOver Pontus for covering that. As a small reminder, if you want great looking lights, expose for the background, put in one main light on your subject, flag it off, you have a very dramatic, very nice looking image. If you instead want more clean stuff, more high key, then you don't need a second light on the other side. Oftentimes a bounce is more than good enough. Then you still have some gradient on the face, there's still something to look at, there's still something interesting, but you don't have to make it quite as dramatic as I'm doing it right now. I read the comments, and due to popular requests from you guys, Pontus is back. Now this mute dude is going to show you what the 60-30-10 rule is. Now, it's a simple rule when it comes to making cinematic material, I'm sorry for using that word, where you basically want 60% boring colors, 30% interesting colors, and 10% striking colors. So far Pontus has given us 2 pillows, which do have interesting colors, and a decoration which we cannot use, but okay, he got some red in there. That was a gift from a dear friend. Thank you, Pontus, for grabbing that from me. And yes, I do agree, this does look like a Maltesers commercial. It still does bear some resemblance into being cinematic, especially if we put a grade on it. Now, what I think is missing is the couch is too boring, so let's change that. And there we go, we went from a very, very boring image to something that you could actually use for an interview in worst case. The fact that the paintings are cut off and they don't look straight, that's not great, but you do what you have to do, right? Right? And now, hack number 5. I know we're already there. It's such a fun video, you can barely even tell time has passed. Anyway, use what you have. I know that sounds very unclear and very weird, but if you just think about it for 2 seconds, what we spend most of our time doing as filmmakers is just wishing we had that thing, then we could shoot that thing. That we had that thing, then we could shoot that thing. I'm currently based in Sweden, and I have awesome stuff all around me, but all that goes through my head is just, oh, I want to go to the US, and I want to go to the Grand Canyons, or I want to visit a filmmaker store in LA, because that's something I would be interested in. But my audience, you guys, you probably don't really care about that, because most of you guys, according to my statistics, are from the US. Instead, I should actually embrace that I'm from Sweden, and we have a lot of awesome nature around here. We have a lot of awesome places to visit. Like for example, Lofoten, one of the most beautiful places in the whole world, is not even a day's car ride away from me. And it never even crossed my mind that I could go there, because my mind is so set on the US and what's happening over there. One last example is that I, for example, really want a high-speed camera, like a new Pixboom Spark that's coming out really soon, or maybe a Freefly Ember, a Phantom Flex VO 4K. I would do very based stuff to get a hold of any of those cameras. Yet I do have cameras that can shoot in up to 240 FPS at a very low shutter speed, which means I can use DaVinci's AI features to get effectively 1000 FPS because I only have to slow it down 4 times. So I'm creating artificial limits on myself and my creativity that I do not have this high-speed camera, even though in reality I can figure out and I know that I can get equal or almost equal shots for a lot less money. If you want to look a little bit more at what DaVinci Resolve can do when it comes to high-speed shooting, Andy X, the awesome Norwegian YouTuber that also runs the production company Views. I don't know how they figured someone would be able to pronounce that, but they're Norwegians, so I guess we have to give them some leeway. Anyway, if you want to learn more about that, then check out their video. It's linked down below. And now we're here at hack number 6. I don't know why I did that. We're talking about AI. And I know, AI is a big topic and it's a scary topic and a lot of people go, oh no, AI, it's gonna take our jobs. Most probably it's going to take our jobs, but before it does that, we can at least use it to help us and our job. So while I wouldn't really use it to create new shots and I wouldn't really use it to create a whole new video, it's kind of a soulless thing. Using it to create shot lists, to create a storyboard where you sketch out the storyboard, where you feed ChatGPT, Claude, whoever you want, maybe a local LLM on your computer. And then you tell it, hey, please make this very ineligible drawing into something that other people can actually look at and understand what's going on. It's probably gonna spit out a really, really good storyboard picture for you. That's what I use it for a lot. Also these YouTube videos I'm doing, I don't really use it to generate a script for me, but rather I make a script and I tell it, hey, am I missing out on something? Is there something I should not talk about? Is this factually correct? And while I cannot trust it whatsoever, at least it points me in the right direction where I can actually go and fact check it in a proper sense. The point being, with AI, the cat is out of the bag. It's not coming into the bag again. It wants to be free. You really should take advantage of it and we really should be using AI to our advantage. And if you don't want to do that, I do respect it, but I'm afraid you will be left behind as well. Now we come to the hack that is kind of personal for me, and it's something I've told a lot of people in my life that I work with a lot to please stop doing. Now they have gotten a lot better, and I would say they're probably better than I am at this now, because I've chastised them so much about it. Anyway, what I'm talking about is, do shoot more, but don't overshoot. Since it's just me in this company, I often end up doing odd jobs, like for example editing documentaries or maybe case studies of different companies. So that means I'm interacting with other people's footage a lot. And something that is always a tell for me if someone has not been editing a lot in their life is if they overshoot. And with overshooting, I mean that they shoot the same freaking angle 200 times. They have a shot of a flower and there's a building in the background. And you would think, okay, you can do 1, maybe 3 variations of this and it's all going to look ish the same. Instead, I'm scrolling through the timeline and I have like 20 instances of this fucking flower going back and forth, you know, the gimbal wiggle, you know? If you could not already tell, in my opinion, this is really bad. Because when I'm editing something, I'm looking for more variety, I'm looking to show more stuff to keep the people entertained and to keep them watching. If the shot is 90% complete, if it's 95% as good as you could get it, give up, walk away and do the next shot. Me editing this video, I don't care if you got the flower in the perfect position and the sunflower was hitting just right. It's awesome if you nailed it on the 3rd try. If you didn't, move on, do more variety, shoot more stuff. I don't mind being handed 2 terabytes of footage to be able to go through. I mind being handed 2 terabytes of footage, and in reality it's only 300 gigabytes because there's so much repetition in there. Don't let your perfectionism kill your momentum on set. It's really easy. Now we come to hack number 8. And this is gonna be a controversial one. I expect a lot of comments about this. Use AI for your background music. I know what I'm saying, but please do listen. Copyright stuff in the Western world is really complicated. What broke my back when it comes to this is that I used to pay a lot of money to artists to use their music for my clients. But they had good music and I knew they didn't really copyright claim their stuff. However, I had a client send me an email. Hey Pontus, the video you gave us, it gave us a copyright notice and now they want a bazillion amount of money. And I go, okay, that's weird because it's just Artlist music. So I contact Artlist, and the thing is that Artlist, they just send out copyright claims automatically. And then you kind of have to fight them and then you show them, hey, I have a subscription. Not the end of the world, it's just 2 or 3 emails in between. But it does not really look that good to the client, does it? I don't really look like a professional, and maybe it's because I'm not a professional, maybe it was Artlist. I have not worked with that client again since then. I'm not putting all of the blame on the artlist here, but I don't think it helped either. So after that I actually switched to Suno. Now Suno is probably the most popular AI creation service. I don't really care for it, I just put in a prompt, epic violin music, and then I feel done with that. But just having the simplest subscription gets you copyright, and that's it. There's no copyright claims ever from Suno, which means you don't ever have this problem again. Now before you comment, I would love to not use AI music. But as it stands right now, it's really hard not to, because I have a business to run and I have to look professional. And getting copyright strikes for my clients, that is not professional whatsoever. Okay, we're getting closer to the end. Now, hack number 9. Don't use hard drives. Don't use HDDs. Especially if you're on set. If you're long-term storing it, if you're editing off it, you do you. If you use proxies, you can absolutely edit from hard drives. However, if you come to me on a set with a hard drive, I will have the urge to punch you. Because on that set I've probably shot 2-3 terabytes that day, and you giving me a hard drive means this is going to take 6 to 8 to 10 hours to transfer, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's happened more than once now that a producer has showed up with hard drives expecting me to be able to deliver the files to them that same day. Even though I get the hard drives at the end of the day, we've been shooting throughout the day and they expect me to just stick around for like 6 hours just waiting for it to transfer. And then we come into these alterations where like, okay, but can we have your memory cards? My CF Express Type B memory cards that are really expensive. And every time I've had to tell them like, no, this is kind of a new brother. I'm sorry, but this is how it is. So what should you get instead? Well, you should get SSDs. SSDs are simply flash storage. There's no spinning hard drive inside of there. But it gets a little bit more complicated than that. Because if you just buy the cheapest SSD you can find, it's probably going to be a QLC drive. That stands for quad layer cell drive. You don't have to know what that means, but basically they are fast drives up until their cache runs out, so they have some RAM cache or maybe some TLC cache. When that runs out, the write speed goes down to like 40 megabytes per second. And mind you, I was just complaining about hard drives right now that go up to 120 or maybe 180 megabytes per second. So then yeah, you get this SSD that says, oh, it's 1000 megabytes write speed. Yeah, for like 50 gigabytes. And then the cache runs out and then you're back down to 40 megabytes. In short, you have to get SSDs with TLC or SLC memory. They are a little bit more pricey, especially in today's climate. Well, luckily for you, I have linked down below some affiliate links with SSDs that are more than fast enough. Like for example, the Samsung T9. Those drives write at full speed up until they're filled. And now, our final hack. If you're still watching, thank you so much. Organization is really key if you're going to be working with anyone else. If you're just working by yourself, you probably know where everything is, but as soon as you start working with other people, having organized gear is really important. And that's where hard cases come in. And my tip for you right here is don't get a Peli case with the track pack dividers. The track pack kit goes for like $300-400 and it's basically just corrugated plastic with some foam on the side. I did my own DIY version that actually works absolutely flawless for what it does. The materials for all of this was roughly $30 to $40, excluding the case, which was an Amazon Basic case, which is just a Peli case copy. It was around $120. So for roughly $150, I did have a straight up Peli case. If you want to get a little bit more fancy though, Cordbag has this awesome new divider system. It's basically the trackback system from Pelican, but it's just a lot cheaper. You can get a kit for €100, where it's basically these divider walls that you can cut up as you want. It looks awesome, it looks really professional. Alright, that's it. That was 10 hacks. That was quick and easy, wasn't it? If there's anything I missed or if there's anything you think other people should know, then please put it down in the comments. I'm really interested to find out what your hacks and your tips are. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. If you want to see more of what I do, then do subscribe. And you know what's coming up. If you want a kiss, then here you go.